I'm here chatting with Howard Bach today. Howard is best known as none other than a world champion. He won the Worlds back in 2005 in the men's doubles event, partnered with the legendary Tony Gunawan. Howard, it's so great to speak with you today.
Thanks for having me, Anna.
So, you are gearing up for the London Olympics in a few months, and it's great to be able to catch you, and we want to chat with you about your training and your goals for London and all sorts of stuff. But to start off with, let's go back and look at Howard, or I knew you as Howie back when we met in the early 90s when you would come up for some junior tournaments in Canada. So what age exactly did you start playing badminton, and why badminton?
Well, one of my dad's ambition was to represent the national team in Vietnam in the sport of badminton. And when we immigrated to the U.S., he definitely wanted me to represent the U.S. in any big competition in the future. So that's how we got started. That's how he introduced me playing badminton at a local YMCA in San Francisco. And that's how the journey began.
Awesome. So I guess then he would be one of your biggest inspirations as a young player. Any other players or coaches that had a big influence on you growing up?
Badminton wasn't very popular back when I started playing, but, besides my dad, I also had different coaches as well that gave me inspiration. But I guess a figure I can name or mention would be sports figures that kind of spark and ignite the spark of interest in sports for me. I remember when I was a baby or a kid growing up, and I actually watched one of those Olympic commercials. They showed this one gentleman, and I believe he was a marathon runner representing some African country. And, he was running his marathon, and he got injured halfway through. And he was actually leading throughout the whole entire race. I believe the last two laps. Someone tripped him, and then he fell. And nonetheless, the story, case in point is, he didn't win the race. But through all the anguish and everything, he was determined to not quit. So he ran through the whole entire marathon in pain and agony. So, the moral behind the story was, there's more than just representing yourself. You're representing your country, your family. So, that story kind of just gave me the inspiration to want to represent my country one day.
Awesome. Well, you definitely went on to represent your country, and not only represent, but you are the first Pan-American player. You're the first player at all outside of Europe and Asia to stand on the top of the podium at the World Badminton Championships. So I think you exceeded just representing your country, but I know that's a big piece of it. I got great pride out of representing Canada, and it's really a privilege too. It makes it bigger than just yourself, which for a sport like badminton that's not a team sport, sometimes it's hard to see the team component, but that definitely brings it in to a bigger picture. So obviously the highlight of your career, well, I could guess it would be, the incredible run at the World Championships in 2005, and just the energy, the atmosphere. I remember being there and just knowing that this was amazing. This is history in the making. I have to guess that that's a highlight of your career, but you tell me for yourself, what is that pinnacle moment that you've had so far, and maybe another one if that one is as well?
Well, definitely the World Championships in 2005 was a memorable one, and it stuck out that much more because, we actually had the opportunity to compete in home turf, in California, pretty much where I grew up, and to see the families and friends, what I normally call people the team behind the team, because people normally only see the accomplishments or, the awards or, all the glamour, but they don't necessarily know what goes behind the full, story behind the scenes. So, just to see the families and friends from San Francisco driving down to LA to come watch me, you know. And what was definitely a great moment because, you know, I won. I was on top of the podium representing everybody, not just myself. So, yes. And lastly, like you've mentioned, Anna, it was really a prideful moment because, you know, we represented Pan Ams too, the Pan Am regions, Pan America. You know, now that we're actually on board, you know, I think that one event actually gave proof to like many other players in the Pan Am region that, hey, you know what? You don't have to be from Asia or Europe to compete against the world. You know, now we have living proof. Like Kevin Cordon, he's you know, he's competitive in the Badminton World.
Yeah, he made it to the quarterfinals of Worlds last year, and it's a stepping stone, and if Howard can do it, maybe we can do it too. So yeah, that's, you know, I remember we were just losing our voices, everybody in there from Canada, you know, often Canada and the US we're competing against one another, but for that, and when it comes to supporting the region in order to help the sport grow, it was all, everyone was behind you, so that was awesome.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
So let's talk a little bit about the Olympics now, because I could not find another player in my research. I think you're going to make history this summer by becoming the first doubles player in the world to qualify for 3 different Olympics with 3 different partners. Do you know of anybody else that's ever done that before? I mean, badminton has only been in the Olympics since 1992, but still, I mean, what an amazing accomplishment, because to take 3 different partners and first of all, to have your career span that kind of length of time is a huge accomplishment, but then to be able to build that magic with 3 different partners, how do you feel about that?
Actually, now that you've mentioned, I've never really thought about that. Like, I've always known, like, well, Kevin Hahn, one of our past Olympians, he actually went to 3 Olympics, but pretty much 2 Olympics was, you know, when he competed in singles. So yeah, thinking back, I mean, it is actually a pretty good run, as you've mentioned. I can pretty much, I don't know, I would give a lot of credit to, like, you know, like I've always mentioned, to the support group that I have behind me. And also, you know, I happen to be at the right place at the right time. So I'm very thankful for that, you know, because you could be Michael Jordan, right, playing basketball. Or, you know, if basketball is not popular in certain countries, then he wouldn't be Michael Jordan. So, you know, definitely I paid my dues. I trained hard, and, you know, when the time called, you know, I was ready and I answered. So I'm just very thankful to be in that position. And, you know, competing in my last Olympics here in London will definitely, you know, close out my chapter of my story in a great way. And, you know, priorities change, and it's time to move on. You know, I've had a lot of fun, and hopefully I can share my experiences with future generations.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to talk about what's next for you in a little bit. But first I want to ask about playing with Tony Gunawan, one of, you know, the world's best. And what's that like, and what are your targets for London? I mean, you two are a threat no matter what tournament you enter, what the ranking you have. You're kind of dark horses sometimes because you don't play that much. And I know you guys have come back together since just the past year and a bit to prepare for London. What's it like playing with Tony, and what's your ambition for London in the Olympics this summer?
Well, it's always a treat and a gift. I see it every time I get step on the court playing with Tony Gunawan, because I always see him as like a big brother and a mentor on the court. You know, it's one thing to be able to coach and teach a player how to play certain strategies or to set certain plays, but at the same time, he was actually doing both. You know, he was, you know, executing at the same time, showing me where to execute, and at the same time, you know, just walking me through the whole entire game. So that's priceless itself. So, you know, Tony as well as myself, I mean, if you were to qualify for his second Olympics, I mean, Tony is so dynamic as a player because he's simply just, you know, so effective and efficient it doesn't matter who he partners up with. He's able to bring out the best of his game and his partner's game. So that's why Tony Gunawan will remain, to be one of the top 5 or one of the best badminton players to ever play the game.
And so, I mean, looking at London, do you guys have podium ambitions? I mean, that you proved you could beat everyone in the world back in 2005. Why not again here in 2012?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie, Anna. I mean, we're not getting younger, but at the same time, it's definitely great to be back and to have one last shot at the Olympics. And our goal, actually, as a team, is to medal at the Olympics. Obviously, we want the color gold, but our focus is to at least get to the semifinals. So at least we're within striking distance of actually getting a medal for the country. So yes, being like the dark horse and everything else, and I wouldn't count our team out.
Oh,
so.
Definitely not. Definitely not. I think you guys, if you can get to the quarterfinal, semifinal stage, you have that depth of experience. And, a player like Tony, he's been there before. He's stood on the top of not only the World Championship podium, but the Olympic podium. And, and that kind of experience is so valuable at the Olympics. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting for sure.
We're looking forward to it, definitely.
So what do you think is the key to a strong partnership when it comes to doubles? Like you said, Tony is, a great teacher. Do you think that there needs to be that kind of teacher-student role, or what do you think is most important when it comes to building a strong doubles partnership, whether it's at the national level, international, or even at the recreational level?
There's a lot of different dynamics that definitely can contribute to forming a great partnership in doubles or mixed doubles on the court. But one I would express largely would be communications, I believe, because when you're on the court, it's got to be a two-way street. If one person is dictating or just executing and the other teammate is not doing anything, it wouldn't work. So there has to be a two-way street communication type of deal on the court. When I believe Tony and myself, we're dynamic on the court because we understand each other's strengths and weaknesses on the court, and we try to cover each other. If we were to attack or execute during a point, we will understand pretty much the types of shots we choose, how to cover each other. If we were playing defense, we would know how to rotate or to be in certain positions or place to wait for shots. So, it's a percentage game, and the more comfortable you are in understanding your partner, understanding, how each other plays their strength on the court, the easier it is for you to dominate the game. Yeah.
I like what you said there about, knowing the strengths and knowing the weaknesses. Sometimes it's, nobody's going to play a perfect game. And I think in doubles and mixed doubles, it's so important to accept your partner and to know that they're going to have some fallbacks just like you are. And you're a team for a reason, and you're there to fill the gaps for one another. And, that's when those partnerships really click, is when you're accepting of each other and nobody's pointing fingers, but you're filling in what needs to be done and really seeing each other's roles as part of one cohesive unit. It's not two players, but kind of one team.
Yep, definitely.
So looking at your training leading up to the Olympics, because, a lot of the players connected with Better Badminton, they love to know how the pros are training. So what's your training schedule like right now? We've still got 2.5 months left in the Olympic qualifying period that ends at the end of April, and then you'll know for sure. I mean, your spot's pretty much guaranteed at this point, but what do the next 6 months look like for you in terms of training, and what are you doing now on the day-to-day?
We're actually, as we're speaking, today is Wednesday. We're actually leaving for Europe on Sunday for 2 weeks. to compete in the German and All England competition championships. So we're still in the process of traveling and competing and trying to gather as much points as we can for the Olympics. You know, the good thing about the qualifications this time around is, you know, or actually it started in 2008 as well, is that, you know, you can still compete in competitions and try to gain valuable points and place, like ranking, even after the Olympic qualification process. So, for example, we're top 20 right now. You know, after April 31st, April 30th, the cutoff date, we can still actually improve on our ranking. We could be top 10 if we continue to play well up to the Olympics. So,
well, I'm hoping you're going to come up and maybe play Canada Open, although that's a bit close to London. But yeah, so you're going to keep competing all the way up to into June, maybe, or?
Yes, as of right now, as we're speaking, I mean, we do have plans to play and compete in the U.S. and the Canadian Open before the
awesome.
ends and finish. So hopefully we'll catch up again, you know, during that time.
Yeah. So right now, how many hours a day would you say you're focused? I mean, I know what it's like to travel. When you get to tournaments, you have to focus on just being ready for your game. But when it comes to a training period, like how many hours a day are you training? Are you at the point where you're just trying to maintain? Or are you still pushing yourself and doing the off-court stuff as well? Or what does a day in the life of Howard Bach look like when it's full-on training?
Well, if it's full-on training, sometimes I would do as much as 3 sessions a day, but obviously not at this point right now. We normally start to pick up volume during like about 3 months prior to like a big event or a competition. And it's going to be a little bit trickier this time because, you know, we have tournaments in between, so we're not going to have a 3 solid, you know, period of time where we can just train. So, but nonetheless, I mean, Tony and myself, you know, we don't train as much as before, so we try to maximize what we have together on the court while we're training. We still do 1 session a day, okay, during mornings. When I drive to Tony's club, he has his own club as well in California, and we train there in the morning from 7 to 9:30, and in the afternoons, I would train on my own, do weights. I would run. I would do some on-court drills, footwork by myself from about 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So like another 2 hours. So we still do 5 sessions. 5-day training, 2 sessions twice a day. So. Awesome. If you were to add up, probably like 20 hours a week, I guess.
And that's a lighter load. I mean, yes. I think what surprises a lot of people who don't know, you know, professional players and what the training regimen looks like is just how much training is required. Badminton is just so complex. It's got the physical, the strategic, the technical, the psychological, you know, but players like yourself and Tony, you get to a point where a lot of it is maintenance. You know, you've put in, you know, decades now of the build up. And I found at the end of my career too, that it was like, it's in a way you can focus more on the quantity. You have to also, because your body tells you that you can't do what you used to be able to do in volume, but it becomes a lot about quality over quantity training. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. As you know, as we're aging too as well, you know, we definitely can't put in the time and the physical aspect of the training, but you know, at the same time, that doesn't mean we can't work smarter. You know, we can work smarter and produce the same results. You know.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that, as a coach, I try to focus on. Is that you don't need to go and be at the courts for 4 hours. In fact, you know, you can, if you really focus and concentrate on your training, sometimes even an hour and a half, you can get as much done. But it's all about the mental concentration that you apply to the training.
Definitely.
So you mentioned, you hinted earlier that London was going to be the end of this chapter for you. So are you hanging up your rackets? Are you going to, is just as a competitive player, or are you going to, I know you've been dabbling with coaching for the U.S. team. You recently led the U.S. team to victory for the Thomas Cup qualifier. Is that something in your future? Are we going to see Howard Bach coaching the U.S. national team in years to come?
Well, I think internationally, like competing wise, I would say that Olympics will be probably one of my last big events. But obviously, my player contract, ends next March. So I'll probably still be traveling with Tony, playing in like other events, like perhaps Hong Kong Open or something, any other Yonex tournaments up until next March. But yes, in terms of, when it's all said and done, ready to hang up the racket, throw down the towel, I would definitely consider sticking to, the realm of badminton versus finding, a job working for a company per se. I believe, there's a lot of experience I can share and reflect back, and to hopefully groom younger generations, to become better badminton players. So yeah, there are other prospects and talks in the works, whether it be it like, in terms of doing something with badminton clubs or, there's a lot of things that I'm looking forward to doing related to badminton. Yeah.
Great. Well, I hope that we'll keep you in the sport. I mean, I know with my own experience, I never expected to be as involved with coaching or even to enjoy coaching. But when you get to that phase in badminton, it's in your blood, and when you eat, sleep, breathe it for so long, yep, it's really hard to let it go. And I don't want to either, because I love it, and it's, I want to incorporate it into my life, as long as I can. And to, someone like yourself who has this experience, and it's such a gift for players that you work with in the future. I hope that you'll continue. But now I want to, some of our fans want to know about their level. They'll probably not going to get to the Olympics. They might not get to play, Hong Kong Open. But if you were going to tell one of them, like a recreational club level player, what to work on to improve their game most right now, what do you think are, say, even the top 3 most important aspects of improving one's badminton game?
Well, first of all, I believe it doesn't matter what level of badminton, what level of badminton playing that you're doing, or it doesn't matter what level badminton player you are. As long as you enjoy the game, you can play it, until you get really, really old and still enjoy the game. So yes, some of the let me see, 2 or 3 hints, or let me see. I would probably put footwork as one of the most important part of the game that I would suggest players to focus a little more time and effort in, because I believe, obviously being myself, I'm not the tallest player on the court. I'm only 5'6", but therefore, having the proper footwork is equally just as important.
You may only be 5'6", but you can jump about 5'6", so that helps.
Well, I used to when I was younger. I had a lot more energy, but now as my, it's the dynamics. The great thing about the sport of badminton is, you could be any size, age, height, or whatever you want to call it. As long as at the end of the day you make it work as an individual or as a team, to get your job done, that's a great team, or that's a great badminton player. So whatever it takes, to win on the court, fairly, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
So yes, footwork, I would definitely stress a lot in that. And the second suggestion would be, especially because now the game has changed so much, it's rally scoring. Therefore, it's critical. It's imperative that players learn how to focus more on their touch and timing of their shots, because every shot you hit, it's either going to put you in a good position or a bad position for your next shot. So having, the right amount of touch, timing on your shot is actually really important as well. And lastly, if you were to play doubles or mixed doubles as a team, learning how to rotate as a team to cover, your weaknesses and to play to your strengths, that's also really important. So hopefully it helps, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, we focus a lot at Better Badminton on footwork because it's, it doesn't matter how great your strokes are, how deceptive you are. If you can't get there to be able to implement that, then it's all a waste. But that's interesting perspective on the touch when it comes to the rally points too, because like you said, every shot counts now. You can't sit back on your heels and, when it's your serve, relax a little bit. So, obviously you face a lot of pressure when you're out competing at the world-class level. But I talk a lot with my students about, they say to me, well, you must never get nervous. But it's the same thing. The pressure we deal with at the Olympic level is the same as they might feel at the high school level or at the, junior level. How do you handle that pressure of competition? Do you have any certain routines or any advice that you would give to an up-and-coming player who's struggling with the pressure of performing on the court?
It's actually a great question. As you mentioned, it doesn't matter what level you're at. You could be recreational or you could be professional. Everybody goes through the same types of jittery or types of preparation mentality. If you were to tell a recreational player that, professional players don't get nervous, that's a lie. We all get nervous, actually. At least for myself, I can tell you that much. But
for sure. They say most Olympic medals are won on less than 4 hours of sleep. The reality is, no matter who you are, you're going to get nervous and you're going to be thinking ahead and feeling those butterflies.
Well, it's actually a healthy type of reaction, believe it or not. Everybody goes through that. It just simply means you care a lot. If you don't care about like a particular event or a competition, then you wouldn't show any emotions. But nonetheless, always try to focus on what you can control. If you need to, just if you're feeling a little bit like nervous or shaky, just focus on your breathing. What I do to prepare myself is, okay, my routine is, all right, if I'm feeling a little bit awkward, stiff, or just kind of a little bit nervous, I would try to sweat it out a little bit. I would warm up a little bit longer. I'm going to go through my stretching routines, make sure I do certain, let's say, for example, I would do certain lunges to prepare and, warm up my quads or whatever it is. So, go through your normal routine, whether if it's relaxing your wrists or whatever. But at the end of the day, what makes me comfortable is I want to break a little sweat before I start my game. So that's how I've always kind of approached my big competitions.
Yeah, and that kind of helps your mind forget about all the thoughts and just focus on your breathing and let your body kind of take over what it knows how to do.
Exactly.
Sometimes the mind can work against your body because you get thinking too much.
Yes, definitely.
So if it came to looking at the biggest challenges you've had off the court in badminton, because I know, like for me, it's cliche, but I always, strongly believe that the most important things I've learned in life, I've learned on the badminton court. The challenges I've faced on the court have helped hugely with challenges off the court. What is the biggest challenge you faced in your life off of the badminton court?
Well, obviously, sharing similar setbacks or environments, be it a Canadian or an American playing badminton, trying to be competitive in the world. Obviously, having the right and proper amount of sparring partner has always been a challenge. We always wanted to improve at a fast rate, as fast as we can. But badminton is not like, where you would, jump in the pool and start swimming and try to beat the clock, right? Or try to run on on the track and try to, sprint as fast as you can and beat the world record.
Yeah, you need someone on the other side of the net.
So that's always been one challenge that, being a Pan American badminton athlete, that's what we experience. But I mean, I've had like a lot of trials in my life where, there are times when, I'm like telling myself, should I continue? Should I quit? Is it worth it? Is it not? It's always the love of the badminton that brought me back, and put things in perspective, So, for example, actually in 2004 Olympics, that was actually my first Olympics in Greece, Athens, right? So, and I'm like, wow, I just made the Olympics. I was really happy. It was great. And then I found out like a month and a half before the start of the Olympics, my dad was in a coma. So I'm like, no way. Are you kidding me? Because he had diabetes and so he was in trouble. And I found out that he was in a coma. So I'm like, oh no. So I went back to see him. And I'm like, you have to wake up, Dad, because, I wanted to go to the Olympics for you, You're the reason why, like, I'm in the Olympics. So yeah, and then the crazy thing was when I got there, the doctors are like, oh, you know what? Your dad is not doing really well. There's, like, a really high chance he won't make it, but just talk to him anyways, Like, just talk to him and try to, like, excite him. I'm like, dude, is this, like, some kind of soap opera? It's not happening to me. Like, they're like speaking a different language. I'm like, what do you mean talk to him? This is not a movie. This is like real life. This is my dad, like in his deathbed almost. But, nonetheless, I spoke to him, talked about badminton. I'm like, hey, you got to wake up because, I got to go to the Olympics. You're going to have to like give me tips and all that stuff. So nonetheless, yeah, he actually pulled through and woke up. Like 3 weeks after. Yeah, exactly. He was in a coma for about like 3 weeks. And everybody was just like, wow, what? I don't believe it. Here's this guy, he's got a 20% chance of living. He actually woke up and, and answered. And, he was there for his son because his son needed him most. So, I mean.
Oh, I've got goosebumps. That's amazing.
There are like trials and errors. And I was just like, oh, wow, you know what? When you think you've got the best of many things, it just put things in perspective and makes you appreciate, whatever you have. Just you have to enjoy it. So
yeah. Oh wow. And
badminton taught me that, just be yourself. Right after I won the World Championships, I am that grounded, I think, because I have yet to put that medal in like one of those. What do you call it? Those.
Yeah, the display cases.
That display case and all that stuff. It's still wrapped up in like a paper, like a printing paper sheet, like wrapped up somewhere. And like,
but I think that so many champions that I've talked to and met, and even when it comes to some of my successes, it's so much about the journey that when you do finally get that medal that is great, but that's not what counts. What counts are, the people that got you there and all the lessons you learned along the way, and sharing those moments with, your supporters and your family. And yeah, I know some multi winners from Olympics that they don't even know where their medals are. So I mean, it's I think that's a good sign. I think it shows that you have your priorities in line and that you're playing for the right reasons. I mean, that's, in badminton in North America, there's so many reasons why we should not pursue this sport, because there's so many other professional sports and there's so many other priorities that our society says are going to make us more successful. So those of us who do pursue it, they do it so much out of a love for the game that it's I think it really comes out in your character. And as everybody listening to today will hear, you're very genuine and grounded, and we're very grateful that you were able to take your time out of your busy schedule to chat with us.
No, thanks for allowing me to share my side of the story. And Anna, also, please allow me to finish off by simply sharing a side of, a story in regards to how your family actually supported you along the way. And you're probably like, what are you talking about right now? So pretty much 2008, right, in Beijing, I had tickets like pretty much every day, up until like finals. And then like, I'm walking to like the main hall of training, getting ready to compete. And of course I see like, Canadians, right, outside trying to like get tickets. And I so happened to find out that it was actually your mom and your sister. They're like, oh my God, we need to go get tickets for tonight. Can someone help me? They're not talking to me per se, indirectly. I accidentally overheard it. So I'm like, oh, do you need tickets? I mean, is someone competing, a family member? They're like, yes, my daughter is competing tonight, but, I don't want to call her. Chances are her phone's off. The last thing I want to do is disrupt her routine or whatever. I just need to get in so I can support, and show my daughter that, we're there to support him. So, and I so happened to have the ticket that she wanted. So I'm like, here you go. Wow. It's just, it's funny how things kind of work out.
That was you?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
They didn't know who it was. They didn't know it was a world champion.
Well, I didn't know it was your family member also. So I would have been like, what, if I had more, I would have given you more. But, I believe, I have to say it, I'm not a very, religious person, but I do believe things happen for a reason. So, we were there at the right time, at the right place, like I've mentioned. So,
Wow. Well, I owe you a huge thank you then, because
don't owe me. I mean, just say thank you to your mom. At the end of the day, when you talk to her next time, and your sister, I believe. There was that.
Yeah. Well, they split up. Actually, my dad and my other sister were there, but they had just split up, and they didn't tell me this till after that they split up around Beijing and were at different subway stations and just had signs just begging people for tickets because we had tried, but I mean, as you know, badminton in Beijing was the first sport to sell out.
It's like trying to get like World Cup tickets the last day. It's impossible.
Yeah, so they just said that some American guy. They didn't even say that it was a badminton player. Oh, well, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll call my mom after and tell her, do you know who that was who gave you the tickets?
I think she might have known. I'm like, I'm Howie Bach. She's like, oh yeah, whatever. Just give me the tickets.
Oh, well, thanks for that. And thanks again for sharing your time. And we wish you all the best. We'll be following for sure in London and cheering you on. And I really hope that not just for you and Tony, but also for all of anyone playing badminton in a smaller badminton country around the world, that you can do well and prove to the dominant powerhouse countries that it's badminton is growing and that more and more people are going to be playing this sport and competing for the top prize. So thank you so much for your time, Howard, and all the best to you. And maybe we'll catch up again for an interview after you've got that medal you're after later this summer. Cross
my fingers, and we're looking forward to it.
But, okay. Yeah. Thanks. Take care, Howard.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.